Hey everyone, Ted Simpson here, certified Bob Ross instructor, and I'd love to show you this fine painting I'm going to do here today. Now I've got my little canvas here, and those sharp-eyed viewers will see that it's a 12 by 16 set in the landscape orientation. And it's already covered with a thin, even coat of the liquid acrylic paint called black gesso. Allow that to dry completely. And then I'm putting on a very, very thin coat of liquid clear. Now this black gesso, I know it looked a little gray, and those extra sharp, eagle-eyed viewers will know that this is the same canvas as last week's video. I did a seascape there, and I got done with filming, and I scraped it and wiped it with a couple coats of paint thinner, wiped it off, wet it down again, wiped it off again, let it dry, and I'm just going to do a new oil painting right on the old canvas. But this canvas has held up really, really well. So let us see what we got here today. I'm going to close that jar of liquid clear so I don't accidentally spill it. We've got titanium white. Maybe I'll start doing this each time. Alizarin crimson, phthalo blue, mountain mix, midnight black, Van Dyke brown, phthalo green, sap green, and cadmium yellow. So, first thing I'm going to do is mix up a batch of purple. Okay, didn't even have to flatten those colors. I'm going to take, a nice chunk, 2/3 of my pile there. A lot less blue. Remember, the crimson needs to be several more times the volume than blue. The blue is very, very strong. It does not take as much. And you can see here I'm just getting it up on my knife and spreading it off, making sure that knife comes away clean so you don't have a bunch of wasted paint. Now, to see what color it is, I can take just a little bit of the white, touch of that color, and moosh it in a little bit. Okay? That just shows you the shade, if it's a little to the blue side, a little to the red, add the appropriate amount. But this is just for testing. There it is. Don't want to put that white back in the pile. I like that purple. I think it's going to serve me well. So, what I'm going to do is, using an old 1-inch brush here, we're going to prep and cover the entire canvas. But today, about the middle third of the canvas, I'm going to use phthalo green. Okay? A brush full, look at that. A brush full of color, just tapping it in both sides there, puts a nice 1.5 inch wide swath of paint. I come in, I tap some color on, just make it a little lower, reload my brush, make it a little higher. It's really up to you how much to cover here. Now, a little bit of a grind kind of pushes it right into the fabric, but I'm not going to go over it too many times, or else the color starts coming back off. So, you gotta ask yourself if that's about how much you want in your sky or not. You could use more or less. Double check, and then I'm going to go ahead and clean out my brush. Really get all that excess color out. You can do it in just a paper towel or two. You don't have to use your beater bucket if you don't want to. There you go. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to use a clean, dry one here, just in case I didn't get all that paint thinner off. And now, taking it a step at a time here, I'm going to start putting purple in. Loading that brush, doing a section at a time here. Crisscross strokes, little circle scrubs, whatever gets it in there. I've already filled it in. Now I got one little bit left to do. And I'm just going to try to sneak it in there. It's okay if you overlap the green a little bit. I try not to overwork it. Just putting a thin film of the purple. Now that's done. As I'm just grabbing just a little bit of color, you can use the knife to flatten it down if you don't trust yourself to pick up too much paint. And starting from the bottom here, just pushing that color, getting it off my brush, and reload. I struggled for a while when I was first starting out, trying to get the right amount of color on there, until I just took it kind of methodically and said, this brush full of paint, try to load the same amount of paint every time, allots me a certain amount. And once I get it in there, because this stuff is so transparent, it's tough to see. You want to keep going over and over and over. And if you don't have too much paint left in your brush, you keep going over and it starts coming back off. I just had a class last night where someone just kept going in the same spot over and over with more and more paint. You don't want to do that either, you know. Not looking to overload the entire canvas, just putting a thin film. My best advice, if you're not sure if there's enough color there, touch your finger. If your finger comes back with some paint on it, you're probably okay. If it comes back, dripping, you just pulled up a huge, chunk of paint, well, that might be a little too much. Okay, so right quick, we've got the entire canvas covered with some kind of color. So I'm going to clean out my brush here. There you go. Get all them frustrations out. Now I'm really making sure I get all that paint thinner off. There we go. That might have been a dirty paper towel. Let's try that again. Look at that. I didn't even use this color and it's all over me. Some of that purple. Oh, it's some of my testing pile. I grabbed the wrong side of the paper towel. Oh well. Messy, messy, messy. So now we can start putting out, actually got some on the brush too, that'll be okay. A little bit of that titanium white, just beating a little bit into the brush here. Not a great deal of paint. And let's go right into this, the bottom section of where I put the phthalo green. Back and forth. I'm kind of holding my brush sideways this time and giving those famous Bob sweepy strokes. They're very shallow U's. And I'm going to work my way up. You can see I'm running out of paint as I start working my way up into the purple and out of it. All the way out. Look at that, just fades away. Isn't that something? So let's clean our brush. And we can do it again. If we didn't get it bright enough the first time, we can do it again. Starting down here at our bright spot, going back and forth while working my way up. Kind of like shifting on my feet here. My whole body is kind of sweeping across, coming back. I like it fading away into the dark. So it doesn't all have to be super duper bright. There we go. One last clean of the brush. Okay, paper towel here. Really want to make sure that it's fresh and dry now. Now with no paint on the brush, I do one last crisscross stroke, starting in the bright, softening as I go, barely touching the canvas. And this is just the background glow I want in my scene. It's not the final sky by a long shot. Just getting some color out there as a background glow. All right. Now we can start putting in some clouds. These clouds are a little different here. They're dark and distinct. Not dark, but the deepest value, the brightest white here, is at the bottom of the cloud. See? The opposite of what we normally do. Putting a little bit, making the bottom nice and distinct. And I'm just going to focus on one or two right now. Pushing some color, these little sweepy motions. This is how Bob normally does shadow clouds. He put the shadow in first. Now maybe that'll jog your memory here if this looks a little weird. Bob did this for the shadow in a daytime scene. And he'll take this color, leaving the bottom edge now, using just a few bristles here. I'm making these little swirly motions, and I'm blending upwards. I want the top of this cloud to fade off. See that? I don't want to spend a lot of time with it. Little strokes moving the cloud up, building out the body of the cloud for sure, just by moving the existing paint. Very nice, huh? So as I progress, I just do one or two of these clouds at a time, loading some color and dropping them in. Now, one of the things I love doing is overlapping a little bit of that previous cloud. So let's see if we can't get some paint out there. And maybe one up here. But the more you overlap here, the more layers you do, the more interesting it can be. Building it out, you can see how quickly it wants to fade off into the purple. I urge you to let it fade away, and then leave it alone so you don't just like cut the whole cloud off. If you keep working it and working it, you take out all this variation of the color here. All these different little purples and lavenders and lilacs and all those other shades here. You'll lose it. Okay. And let's see here. You'll notice here when I'm doing this, it's okay if your paint is a little dirty. It's going to get contaminated as you're putting some out here. No, it's fine. It's fine. Quite often here we just do a couple clouds at once, even one at a time, so I don't accidentally blend one away here. I like to normally start from the bottom and work my way up. I already put one there, so you can see it's a little bit of a trick sneaking one in below or in between. Do your best here. If you don't want to worry about that, only put them in at the bottom and work your way up. What else? I think we got room for a little bit more here. Maybe this one's a little way off in the distance here. It's not as bright. It doesn't need as much paint. It's a little darker. Fading upwards here, fading off into the night. Ooh, I forgot to do this whole one right here. See? That's why I don't try to do too many at once. Sometimes you forget about them. Okay. Now, you could do this final blend, these little crisscross strokes, at any point after putting on every cloud if you want to. Or you can just do it at the end. This is just softening every last thing. The trick to this is bringing the handle over one side or the other when you're doing this, so you're hitting it with that beveled edge. And there we go. Alrighty, so I think that's all the clouds I want in my sky today. Now let's put some distant mountains. One of the tricks here, or one of the fun things we're trying to do, is make lots of light. And we're going to try to make all sorts of distant shapes here with mist and fog. Okay, some of this paint, believe it or not, is part of our mountain. We just have to figure out what part. So, a little bit of this mountain color here. Just want to bend those bristles, make some interesting shapes here. As long as it has a pretty distinct outside edge, that's all we're really looking for at this point. Once we have that, we can start just whatever's left in my brush, filling in a little, not much. Too much of this paint, you fill it all in right now, and we lose the mist. After we put that color on, we're doing the same standard mountain as Bob always shows us here, just this time letting it fade off into this mist that we initially put on. Focusing on one side of the mountain, going one direction, the other half of the mountain going in the opposite direction. We get this nice little fade. This one here, gonna line it up, follow that outside edge. Maybe those mountains just sort of connect. Pushing that existing color. Yeah, I'm just using this color up here and moving it down. So the more I keep going up and down, up and down, up and down, it'll want to turn that whole mountain into the exact same color. So try not to fiddle too much, okay? Sometimes you can get by here by adding a little bit more of the dark paint up at the top, so you have a little more to move and leave it a little bolder and deeper at the top, deeper in value, I should say. But down here at the bottom, we're just letting it mist away on us. Just letting it mist away. See, a little more paint like that. Just enough to make it a little darker in that spot, but blend it away. I like how that kind of curves up into itself there. There we go. Now, let me clean my brush super quick here. I'm going to go back into that mountain color. Maybe even add a little crimson and blue to it. Crimson and blue make the purple, and all this mountain color is already a super duper dark color. Very, kind of a really dark blue, believe it or not. So I might lose a part of a cloud or two here. So let's just say we're our taller, closest mountain somewhere up here, and it kind of comes down and cuts off those other two peaks, making this one automatically look like it's in front. When you make it a little darker, things look a little closer. So a little more color here. Now I have some white in there from that cloud, so I'm going to have to work around that. Let's see about pressing in here and drawing this down right along that outer edge. Pushing that color. It does fill in quite quick. Clean some of the excess paint off my brush. Get a couple of spots I might have missed there. Soften it a little more. Let me step back here. Sometimes it's hard for me to see with these bright lights, especially on a black canvas. It's hard for me to see what it's looking like here. Oh, there we go. Missed that little dark bit there. Pull that down, pull that away. Look at these different shapes we got going. These little ridges and all these little things happening just by pulling the brush in different directions. You get that 3D effect. Now I could keep messing with this and change this any number of times, but I'm going to try not to, just for the sake of your patience with me. Okay, well, I say, at least over here on my scene here, it looks like I have a big old lake just kind of popping into view. But the next layer, we got to put something on there to help give us the impression of background trees. So, I'm going to take a little bit of that pure purple color and mountain color. See, it's just all this dark color. Getting a little bit up on my brush on both sides here. See that? A little bit on both sides. Now using the corner of the brush, I just pull down. See that? The advantage of this is the same color, there's just more of it, so it automatically is going to look darker and closer and look like a little line of trees kind of peeking out here, pulling down, getting some here and there, maybe just right out to there. No, it's not going too far. Okay, alrighty, let's give that brush a quick clean. I'm just going to give it, I just need to knock some of the excess paint out of the brush. Just, oop, paint in my hand. There we go. Now with a very light touch, I'm just lifting up with the lightest possible touch. Just helps keep it, vertical. Works for me. Now, we pop right into a lake. Okay, so let's make reflections, and that will make our water. I come up here with a little bit of the titanium white, doesn't matter if it's a little stained or not. I come up here, I press in and pull down. Push and pull. Push and pull. Turn the brush over, get a little more color from the other side. Okay, if you need to reload, that's fine. Just takes a little bit of paint. Once I get it on, then I start pulling it down. Stretching those vertical lines. Okay? I know you're tempted, you want to do it all the way across, but just a little bit, just under this little tree line first. With a very light touch, I blur it sideways. Just enough to settle it down. Nice. Now, with a very, very, very small roll of paint, it can be whatever shade you want here. I don't know how bright you want it. Doesn't really matter. Just the tiniest roll on the knife. I come in here and I just touch and saw, creating a little water line. Hardly any pressure. You shouldn't need much force here. It just comes right off. You hide the top of that reflection a little bit. Maybe extend this out just a little bit, just in case. Just in case what? Oh, you'll see here in a minute. So, taking a look here, I might straighten it out a little bit. When I took a step back, it didn't look exactly straight up and down. So I can actually move those reflections. I can change the angle a little bit. There we go. There we are. Now I got to clean another whole brush. But that's okay. Part of this task is cleaning brushes. So I got all that mountain mix. I tell you what, let's make a big pile of dark. I take my crimson, some of my blue. What does that make? That makes the purple. All of my mountain mix plus a little black, brown, touch of the greens. Just giving this whole pile of color some body to it. Don't have to mix it as many times as I'm doing it, but if you want to, you're more than welcome to. All right, let's get into making some evergreens here. So we've got our fan brush, all nice and cleaned out, hopefully. That one's tough to beat the devil out of there. Loading lots of color. This is the perfect episode, or YouTube video, episodes I guess would work, to do evergreens, to practice your evergreens, because we're making several of them, okay? And let's just tap downward, make a little skinny line that we can see, and we're just going to start tapping down, working from the center out, building this tree down, making it go a little wider as we work our way down, and that tree is just going to disappear into some land. So once I get a little past this water line here, you could stop. You don't need to do any more than that. And we get to make as many trees as we can here, just by tapping plenty of paint on the brush, letting the bristles bend. That's the trick, believe it or not. It's almost like no trick at all. You just got to let the brush do its thing. Tapping the brush. Look at this. I'm going to go crazy here. Make one kind of cresting the outer edge of this mountain. And you can see that little line I put on doesn't have to go all the way down. It's just, it's just a guideline. So you can see the relative middle of the tree, There we go. How many do we want to put in there? It's up to you. Just drop them in until you're happy. Some of these ones, if you want them in the background, you can do those first or second. It doesn't matter. Five or six. I think I did 5 here on my reference picture, so we always gotta do more, huh? There's a little 6th one. Okay. And let's see what we got here. Now this, you just pull a little bit of the bottom of the paint here. I'm just pulling the bottom of those trees. You can put a little bit of land that these trees are growing out from. There we go. I know this is a little hard to see here, but I'm pulling it out just a little bit here. As I'm moving off to the left, I'm pulling more. I'm trying to create a perspective here, that this is farther away and it gets closer as we move to the left. And like I said, we just want some color out here so we can kind of figure out where those trees are growing. And then clean our brush. so many times here, Bob teaches us just keep using some of the same colors, you know? Makes it easy. You don't have to sit there and mix 14 different colors every time you want to paint. Just a few variations of the same in different parts of your painting work just fine. And maybe wear gloves. I am covered in this. What did I do here? Let's go ahead, take a little bit of our white, and this is still that contaminated white. I'm trying to prove a point here. The white is still white enough, even though it's a little contaminated. The smallest roll, very, very small. That might be even too big. Half of that amount. I tell you what, my knife is too big. I gotta use the small knife here. Here we go. And let's just touch, put a little indication of trunk. If it gets a little contaminated, just wipe, reload. Oh, there we go. Gotta get that angle right. Don't really want too much there, just an indication. This one here got a little overdone. You know, if it gets a little overdone, you can always just tap some dark back right on over it and try it again. See that? Let's give that a go. Just a little bink. Nice. Bink. Nice. Gotta compliment yourself. Acknowledge your successes. So, using just a little bit of the cad yellow, and it looks like I used sap green here, but a little bit of phthalo green works just as well. You got to find a highlight color that works for you. A little greener, a little duller, add a little bit of your dark color, your shadow color to it, and that'll dull things down quite a bit. So let's come up here and with little touches, putting our little frownies on there. I think I actually loaded too much paint. Ooh, that thing was a little full. Little bits of highlight wherever you're thinking they need to be. Doot, 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 doot. I always say, make your noises. It helps. Makes every branch 5% better. May not be much to you. 5%, that's a lot. There we go. Look at that. Now, I'm not even going to clean this brush. We're going to use that again. And let's see here. We'll take a little bit of the Van Dyke brown. I think the small knife might be the ticket here. And I'm just going to gently touch and pull down. Wherever you want. As long as you just slightly overlap that land you pulled out, kind of your guideline there. Just slathering this down. I want to make it look like a little cliff edge. Okay, there's a little distance here. Now, since it's further away over here on the right side, I just don't pull down as far. As I start working my way left, I just make it a little lower, a little more land here. Cliff, rocky edge, earthy, I don't know what to call it. It's either or. How about that? There we go. Get that down there so that makes sense. Now, you can make more or the same amount or different color here, just a little variation of browns and whites. And I'm going to be using the small edge of my small knife. And just like that snow on the mountain, I just start at the top and let that blade just fall over. Look at that, just letting that come off as light as I can. I'm trying not to fiddle with it too much. I'm switching over to the large side of the knife, and I can do this bigger, bulkier chunk of highlight. Look at that. Now, of course, the more you play with it, the more those colors are going to mix and melt and maybe make new shades or just blend away. Okay? Sometimes I got to go back, juice it up a little more white right there. But we don't just want to mess with it until it's just one dead beige, right? We want there to be a little bit of a variation. Some of it's catching the light. Some of it's not. Some of it can be in shadow. That's okay. I do want to try to find a little light spot here. Maybe just a little bit of sunlight, maybe right up there, catching those little first bits. I don't know. Laying that paint right on top without blending it in, if we can help it. I like that. So now you can change the color a little bit, keep it the same, loading some of that color in the fan brush back and forth, but most importantly, giving it a little push, a little tap forward to get some paint right up on the tips of the bristles. You know it's up on the tips of the bristles when you see this little ridge forming in your little working pile. Okay, so letting us start over here, it's just a light tap, and we're putting in some grass. As I tap, I'm moving away till it dulls itself out, and then reloading my brush and doing some more. We're creating this sort of an overlapping grass effect here. Just sort of tapping away until it gets dark. Every time you reload, it puts more out there that you can blend backwards, meaning off to the left here. And don't be afraid to mix up the colors a little bit. A little more yellow here. How much paint you have in the brush, how hard you tap, what angle you tap, all of this can change the effect. Yeah, that's a good thing. Go for it. You can make it as hilly or as flat as you like just by changing the angles and changing the motion as you move across the canvas. Make these little ridges rounded if you want. What I'm trying to avoid, doing this first pass, I call it, from back to front, try not to go over too many times. We can make things brighter that we missed, for sure. Don't worry, don't fret. I really like to give it a whole pass first. Let it do the first layer of highlights, so to speak, before you keep fiddling with the same spot. See what develops before changing everything. As you're doing it, you're changing, going over it so many times here. You start to get into a little rhythm here. So when you do go back and pick out certain highlights, you just have a little more practice at it, because you've done the whole thing once already. Look at that. Here we go. Getting it in there. As I'm doing this, I'm getting as close to the edge of the cliff as I can, not really worrying about it quite yet. There it is. There's a pass from back to front. Definitely a little bit darker here. I started to get a little impatient, started going a little faster and loaded a little more paint in my brush, and you see the effect changes a little bit. So now I'm going to do this again. making this a little brighter. Try not to stall. I call it stalling, when you just keep working the same bit. That's when all your colors start to turn into just one dead shade. You can pick out some spots here and make them brighter, but if you keep fiddling with it, they'll immediately just pick up that dark color and just keep it getting duller and duller again. So we try to do another pass here, getting some of these spots that we missed. There we go. And at the same time, we can bring these, just let them hang over the rock just a little bit. Cover up that edge. Don't blend them together. Just let them kind of hang over a little bit. It gives it a fun little feeling there. All right, now wiping most of the paint off my brush, I'm going to pick up just a little singular half a drop of paint thinner. That was a lot. Getting a little bit of that white mixed into the brush, I come over here, mix it in with my highlight colors of greens and yellows. Find a nice final highlight color, a little to the yellow side, a little to the green side, and then get it right up on the tips of the bristles. Maybe there's a spot or two that catch just a little bit more. Look at that. Not everywhere. And that little touch of paint thinner allows it to stick to that previous highlight color. But once again, the more you tap it, they will start mixing. Let's say one more right there. I like it. Just enough. Just enough. Now, using my small knife and a little bit of that titanium white, let me get that contaminated paint thinner stuff out of there. Gotta be careful on those paint thinner bits. And let's see here, I got paint on the long side of my knife and the short side. We'll see which one works. Now, when we're making water lines that move forward on us here, the important thing is to keep that knife moving horizontally. If you start just curving the angle there, it starts looking so much like a water line and just an odd angle, an odd curve. Now I'm down over here. I can use the long end of my knife and just putting some color out there. Short edge, long edge, whatever gives you this nice bead looking sideways thing. There it is. You don't need a lot there. I put on a little more than I might have needed to. You know what we forgot? We forgot to put reflections. So, this is great. Perfect way to show you here. If you forget your reflections, and this is all just titanium white waterline, I just pull it down and turn it into reflection. Did the whole thing there. Now, if it's not bright enough, you can come back, try to keep that brush vertical as well, pressing in and pulling down. And then once you got it in there, brush sideways. And we've got reflection under this part of our land. Now, I can come back and here or there. I'm not going to do as much here. Just pushing and moving my knife, creating a little water ripple here or there. You push, you bend, you move the knife, but always still sawing basically sideways. Keeps the perspective true. Oh, there we go. A little more right there. Ooh-wee. Now, I'm switching right on over to my black-handled oval brush, picking up some color, working it into the brush, right up here in the bevel, the curve part. See that? Not filling it all up here, just where that is, just where that angle is, the oval part. All right. Come up here and you gotta get tough. Can't be afraid. You gotta hit that brush. I really want to rhyme. Don't be afraid. And I'm just tapping. Building out a basic tree shape here, tapping some paint on, creating these little hanging limbs, working my way down. As long as it's relatively dark, we're pretty much done. Here at the bottom, keeping my brush level. Okay, I'm not turning my brush. Maybe there's some bushes over here. I don't really know. If you're going to have some bushes, I'm just tapping in some dark. Just so I can see this little thing. Is there a little pathway going to happen here? So, something like that. Simple, simple. Unfortunately, I gotta stop, fold my paper towels, wrap it around that brush and squeeze and stir a lot of that paint out. There we go. Now, I'm gonna have just a little drop here of the liquid clear, and I'm going to pull some yellow down and work it back and forth, tap it a few times on both sides. Want to incorporate some of that liquid clear and create a slightly thinner yellow-green mix here. But I load a little yellow, work it in, tap it, work it in. Look at that chiseled edge forming here. Paint's all up in those bristles. Now I'm going to add a little bit of my phthalo and sap greens, going back and forth. There, I kind of like that color. Looking nice. But once again, after I load and smooth, I give it a little push upwards, that little tap, creating that little ridge line now, a big ridge line, because this is a big brush full of color. Getting that paint right up on the tips of those bristles. See that? Just by tapping at an angle, it pushes the paint right up to where we need it. And let's go ahead and create a little section, creating a little highlight. The important thing about highlighting these trees is leaving some dark. You don't want to highlight everything. We need the dark, the shadow, as much as the highlight. So, sort of like the grass over here, I'm giving it a pass. I'm building out some basic shapes here, highlighting these little sections of the tree, working my way down, and I try to leave it alone. Notice I say try. Because once I get that in there, I can come back and do another layer of highlights, just as I did with that grass, just in a spot or two. So I took a little bit of the rest of my yellow, a little bit of that titanium white, a touch of that liquid clear, just a touch. Just a touch. And maybe we can pick out some brighter spots here and there. Just to give it a little oomph on a couple of these spots. Not everywhere. There we go. Now I know, well, we got more to do here, so I need a little bit more yellow. Just a little bit here. I used most of it up. So, pulling some more yellow into my brush here, back and forth, and tapping. Ooh, there we go. When you see this texture when you tap, see that lacy texture right there? That's what we want to build out a nice little bush effect. So bringing my handle over a little bit, I can tap, work a little bush section there, reload, putting in a little basic shape here, right on over those dark spots I kind of already tapped in. I'm trying to do just one little bush at a time. Maybe change the color as I'm doing this to give the bush its own little unique flavor. I also like to make layers. You know, you put one in here like that, all these little different shapes here, building our way down. When I reload the brush, drop down a little bit, you can change and create layers of bushes. There we go. Putting in a little path, well, that's just super simple. A little bit of the Van Dyke brown, literally just slathering it on. Just like how I pulled it down this way, I'm pulling it sideways to make a path. See? It's just like, this is pretty thick, just getting kind of chunky. Okay, you can take it and you can pull the other way too, if you just knock off the bottom of those bushes and just turn it into a path. But one of the best secrets I can give you is only pull sideways. We want this path to look flat, don't we? So look at that. I showed you like 3 different ways you can lay this stuff on. Just looking for some dark color. Because I'll come back to my path with the highlight and lay it on sideways, let it graze over. That brown path will pull off its own highlight, I promise. There it is. And coming back to my bush brush, we can create the other side of the path just by putting highlights in. There was already a little bit of dark color there. And overlap the path a little bit, and it really pushes that path underneath. Makes it look like these bushes are growing over it. There we go. Oh, I think I missed one spot here. There we go. What a fun little scene. Didn't take the opportunity. I could have added some darker trees in there, trunks and branches and such. But that was fun. One last thing. Gotta sign this painting here. I'm going to use just a little bit of white. Thin it down with paint thinner, thin it down with liquid clear. Heck, just use liquid white on its own. And just a little signature here. Ooh, little baby signature. Very small here. A little T, a little S, 25. And there we go. Options, playing around, use different colors. In this scene I used the phthalo green and purple. In my example here, I believe that's phthalo blue and purple. So 2 different looks here, depending on what you're going for. Thanks a lot, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. Take care.